we're talking about empowering the people, for example. Like, let's say that the legalization of cannabis in Hawaii benefits the people of Hawaii the most. Like, how would that look? Because I say that because I've heard rumors that, and you could shed some light on this issue, that there are only like 8 licensees to have a dispensary, and then each license is like whatever X amount of locations per license or something like that. So I'm like, well, automatically that means my auntie cannot open a dispensary.
Yeah.
Even if my auntie grows the best buds or whatever, right? Let's say my auntie has the best product. Like, what's her pathway then, like a local person, to, let's say, benefit off this legalization when this rumor I've heard is like there's a bottleneck, or let's say gatekeepers to this path to actually make it profitable?
So this is, we're talking about Massachusetts, how their model kind of incorporates what you're talking about, which is the accessibility to the opportunity for the normal resident, average Hawaii resident who is interested in getting into the market. And, I think there's multiple business models that could be made off of cannabis legalization, as I mentioned, delivery services, whether it's culinary stuff that, people are going to cook you some food with cannabis in it. All of these different opportunities exist where it doesn't necessarily have to have a growing retail type of license to actually participate into the market. But if you're specifically talking about actual growing and distribution of cannabis in the legal market, what that program would be called is more like a social equity or disadvantaged business enterprise. So it's basically, if you're from a disadvantaged community and you lived in the area, that you have first kind of dibs to creating a market in that area, instead of somebody coming from Honolulu coming to Waianae and saying, I like open up my own dispensary in Waianae. Like, no, you should open it in Honolulu. And so there could be preferences that could be drafted into the bill that would be able to give Auntie better opportunity. And so as long as it's at least 51% of the ownership is made up of individuals of Native Hawaiian, for example, backgrounds, or, it could even be Pacific Islanders, right? Or Polynesian background. We could preference all of that kind of stuff in the legalization of the bill. And that's where we're going to rely on community, like I said earlier, to be involved in the process. Because if you're not involved, then we're kind of left up to our own decision making, right? To go and decide what we're going to do with this issue. But if we have more voices at the table who are not afraid to step up and talk story and really get involved, then I think that's where we'll have a lot more success.
Okay, so 2024, 2025, Hawaii is looking a lot different than right now, 2023. Is it a foregone conclusion then that there will be dual use, so recreational and medical? Is it almost a foregone conclusion?
No, I can't say that, of course, because anything's possible.
Okay.
I hate over promising and under delivering, but I can tell you with the utmost certainty that there is massive work being done to try to get something going before January. In terms of the discussion, having a bill in front of us so that we can all digest it and read what this bill is going to be. A pretty big bill. We're talking about like an omnibus bill that would also, it's going to rope into the medical, the adult use. And then on top of that, we're looking at putting hemp into this so that we can kind of just have one governing structure over plant as a whole. And that way there's no back and forth, because that's what has been an issue too with cannabis and hemp, Department of Ag, with Department of Health, and then of course our Attorney General and our law enforcement agencies, right, having to kind of come up with their own ways to dealing with it rather than coming at it in a leveled or unified approach.
And I think one question everyone's like, I want to know this is like, what are we talking as far as like recreational? Like, how much can I be carrying?
So I think that's going to be determined by the coalition that's being made around it. I can tell you some of the current
because like
things that we're looking at. Like I said, Massachusetts. In Massachusetts, you can have like 6 plants per household, 6 plants per adult, or 12 plants per household. You can possess 10 ounces and designate 2 caregivers, and then no compensation allowed, and can't consume the patient product as a caregiver. Stuff like that is what Massachusetts is using. Like I said, we're trying to incorporate the best practices that we're seeing across the nation when it comes to this, and working with the experts to make sure that we're drafting something that's fair and balanced and that will be received positively throughout the community. I would like to point out that 70% of Hawaii residents currently support legalization of cannabis. So at that point, I feel like we actually have a mandate as the legislature. If 70% of people in Hawaii want to see something, that who are we to stand in the way of making that happen? I think it's our duty to make sure it's done right and make sure that it's done fairly, so that we can all see the benefits of it, not just corporations that are coming from outside who have all these special interests. I think we need to really put the power in the people's hands when it comes to the cannabis, and how the free market will self-regulate itself once it gets kicked off. If the framework is properly put together, I think that we'll see a successful program.
I think, well, I guess that's part of the reason why you say horizontal is better than vertical, is because, and if we should front run it at the state level before it gets federal, because if federal says, okay, some predatory like Monsanto or somebody comes in, does everything vertical and gives the little guys no chance.
Yeah.
I could see that. And then also like the term, for me, like what I know from my experience is like the term personal use, right?
Yeah.
Personal use, X amount of grams, you know what I mean? Like whatever that is. But like having I guess you could say it for alcohol too. Like, why are you buying 5 crates of vodka? You know what I mean? Like, is that personal use? No, there's intent to distribute. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of why I wanted to ask about the numbers part of this thing. Like, what? I know it's easy when you have plants, 6 plants per household type of thing. But when it comes to, I mean, personal use, like, why do you have 15 pounds? Type of thing. But then I think what happens is
stockholding too.
There's no need to have 15 pounds, because you won't find a demand for that 15 pounds if your intent is to distribute in the legacy market.
Because
there's the demand has diluted now. In the marketplace.
And then of course, as the consumer, you want a trusted source. You don't want to deal with somebody coming out of their yard with it, right? And you rather say, I know for a fact this has been tested, it's good, it has the label, it has the seal of approval, and I know I'm getting what I'm paying for. And I think majority of people are gonna be like that. Of course, you're gonna have people who, you know, like Smirnoff vodka, or, you know, then Grey Goose, right? Like, so you'll have those guys that are just looking for vodka. They're not looking about the strain or anything special. They just need what they want. So
you're right. And I see a lot of opportunity for licensing as well, where like I've heard, and I can't confirm this, but I've heard Kirkland vodka is Smirnoff vodka in that Kirkland bottle license.
I can see that.
You know what I mean? It's like we're bottling Smirnoff, but we're buying basically the rights to put our label on it. Or so I could see, just in the horizontal view, right?
Yeah.
I could see how that would be a little bit better than a vertical, in that distribution is a little different, and there's a lot of opportunity, access to opportunity. I like that term. Access to opportunity in distribution. Access to opportunity in manufacturing. And then also like all the peripherals around, like all the existing places like bars, hotels. You said in a Thailand example, like all these existing establishments and venues even me, like someone who spent a lot of time in the wedding industry in Hawaii, I can just see how now it could fit into all these different places.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm excited as
Cannabis focused wedding.
I mean, like not every, but many weddings. Like if you're a vendor at a wedding, you know what I mean? But like there's so many different bar vendors, right?
Yeah.
It's just another thing that a bride and groom are going to be thinking about is, oh, should we have a cannabis bar right next to our, other bar? And they can choose to go to Costco and buy a bunch of liquor because they know they can return the ones they don't open, and then just give it to the people who you hire to be a vendor at your wedding reception. And there could be a similar thing with, let's say, the cannabis bar at your. I know currently right now there already are these activities and venues and meetups, but it's limited by that 328B, right? Oh. So as soon as I stepped into one over here at the dispensary because I wanted to learn, like, hey, I want to get my card. But the first thing, before I could even say hi, it was, hi, do you have your card? Immediate. I get it, right? Like you could probably get in trouble if you let someone in here who doesn't. But like, if that kind of accessibility just blows up to the point where it's at the wedding, it's at, let's say Hilton decides to have every lobby has like a bar or some kind of alcohol access to it. There's coffee, alcohol, and weed. I just don't see how any person in business in Hawaii with visitors and locals frequenting their establishment can ignore this. So I know there's even if you don't smoke, even if you don't get high, you know what I mean? Like I think there's a stigma that's slowly dwindling. Yeah. That's like weed ain't just for people getting high. And a lot of them are those older constituents that are like 60 or something. Yeah. Their job, they don't get piss tests or whatever, or maybe they're retired, service members especially. Like all the service members who can now like not look over their shoulders. Right. That's a huge one. I don't know how that works, state, federal, because
it's totally separate. Yeah, so it's still illegal federally, but it's going to be legal. Yeah, it's going to be illegal for the state. But there are, I believe, some exemptions for federal guys. If I think it's under the medical policies potentially. Don't quote me on that, but something to look into if you're a medical, if you want to get into the medical cannabis side from the federal level and making sure your job is
like getting pinched, right? Like the people who got pinched, the people, I feel like this is going to affect them. Bro, damn, it's been an hour. What should we, I don't want to, like, you said you don't want to overpromise, underdeliver, so I won't ask for like hard dates or anything like that, but let's give the people who have been waiting for this some sort of like light at the end of the tunnel message here.
Yeah, so my hope is that the legislature understands the political call to action that had been put upon us by the general public of Hawaii with a 70% support for cannabis to be legal and have dual use for adults. I think that we have to answer that call with action. And I think by the Senate showing that they're willing to move this forward, that it leaves it up to the House of Representatives for the state of Hawaii to take on drafting something that will actually be successful in its implementation. A lot of times we talk about theory and how things would work in theory, but we want to do it to the best of our knowledge of how it's actually working in action. And that's why we visited these different states to look at their models as well as look at our current medical operations here in Hawaii and see how we can put it together so that, like I mentioned earlier, win-win situations. And I keep repeating that because that's where my intentions are for drafting a measure to legalize this. And how that process will work is in January when we have to introduce all the bills that we plan to move for the 2024 legislative session. The bill for legalizing cannabis will be submitted by one of the chairs or the speaker or whoever it may be. This could be even the Senate. And We will be having hearings so that the people can voice their concerns and support or opposition for legalizing cannabis. While we go through those deliberations, we're going to be taking back all of the information that is being shared with us as a committee, as a body at the legislature, and incorporate as much as we can of the voices of the people into the bill that will finally go through all of the committees, pass the House or the Senate, and then it will go through the committees on either House or Senate side again, and then whoever introduces the bill that gets passed will have to do a final reading on it. That final reading happens, we pass it out. The governor will then receive the bill, and the governor will then decide to either pass the bill with his signature, veto the bill, or let the bill pass without his signature. And so those are the three options the governor has once it gets to his desk. And then from there, once that's done, I do want to mention that it will cost money to start a program. And we're hoping to recoup the money that we invest into starting this program back from the applications that are being submitted to apply for legalization and to have a distribution or one of the horizontal permits that will be available. And from there, basically we'll have a set timeline of when we set to go live with cannabis legalization. And the messaging is super important. So I think that we'll be working diligently to make sure our messaging is on point so that, like I said earlier, we don't overpromise and underdeliver, and ensure that people are aware of what the criteria are, what's the regulations, and how to be in compliance with being in the market or as a consumer in the market.
And when it comes time for that educational piece,
Yeah.
feel free to use this. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, because I'm sure that's a huge part, so people don't get the wrong idea or mess up some way. Thanks for laying that out. And you're saying that Governor Green is already kind of committed?
Yes,
So
Governor Green has committed to supporting legalization, and that was one of the big things that we needed to move this forward. And if his administration isn't on board, which they are, we're working directly with his department of his Attorney General's office to craft something that we are working with all of the other departments, like the Department of Health and Department of Ag, to draft something that meets everybody's needs.
last thing for me.
Yeah.
When I left Hawaii many decades ago, an ounce was like 400 plus. Now it's like 2 something. How do you see the price being affected for the consumer?
You know, I think for the pricing that there is going to be a level of competition that we have never seen before in both the legacy as well as legal market that currently exists now. And I think that's going to make people step their game up and be fair, you know, and how they want to price things out. I don't think it's going to be the case where there's just a handful of people that are going to control the market and set the price points for everything. I think that the market will decide what they're going to pay for what, and, you know, the quality of the products that exist on the market. I think that's going to be a big determination on who will survive, because I think it will also be like other states where there's just going to be an influx of just people throwing their name in the hat to try to get us a store started or a dispensary started, and they're not going to have the expertise. They're not going to have all of the components that you're going to need to be successful in the industry. And I think if they're not able to meet those components, then they're not going to necessarily
Survive.
make it through. I want to try to use. I'm trying to use a politically, you know, make it through the rush, right, of business interest in that industry. So I think it's important that people who are interested in getting involved, that they do their research, that they try to create a team of folks that can help guide them, so that they're not just in this shooting blindly, trying to get a hold of a market that may be out of their league. So I think that also one of the things that we can do as the state side is to have the educational component. Like, for example, We can hold workshops, right? People who want to go apply for this, okay, we'll hold a workshop. These are the things that you need to be focused on if you're going to start a company trying to be involved in the medical or the dual use industry. These are the things that we want to make sure you have in place so that you're successful. And we don't want people to waste their money trying to get into this industry and fall flat on their face. So I think that will be something that I
That'd be huge.
keep at the forefront of discussions as we're engaging on how to make this happen.